Hello folks, welcome to Canal Channel Jose. Today we're gonna show you and give you an idea how we replace the shifter on our Manx, and this is a 58 frame, and this component was for a 61 to 67 Volkswagen Beetle or karmann Ghia, but because this is a 58, it fits for 58 to 67. That's it fit. So what we did is we went and bought it. We didn't even go online and bought it. We went to a place in National City here in San Diego that is called B Parts, and they have a lot of knowledge about this. They know what they're talking about, and they have everything pretty much available on the store. And if they don't have it, they will get it to you within a few days. So that's where we go for any questions or anything that we need to buy for Volkswagen Beetle or Manx. That's the first place that we think about. So we're gonna leave their info in the description box, because they're very helpful and they have everything pretty much. So we're gonna show you how we did this replacement. So that way, if you need to replace it or it broke off on you, this is gonna help you a lot. And with that said, let's jump right into it. So this is the shifter that we're gonna be putting in. This is what it cost us, about $70, and it comes complete. This is the part number, and it comes with the bottom plate with the spring, the shifter, the cover, the metal cover, the boot, and the ball for the shifter. So that's what we're installing. And for tools, we're gonna be using our electric ratchet, an extension, and a 14mm socket. A 9/16 works as well. So to replace this shifter, which is broken, as you can see, if you have carpet, you're gonna have to peel it up a little bit for the front and the back to expose these two bolts. This can be used a 14mm or 9/16 socket or wrench. Now once we expose it, we take those off so we can lift this whole structure and bring it out so we can put the new one. Now that we have taken both bolts off, we can pull everything straight up that we have on hand. For example, on our side, it broke off half of it. So we take off that. And then there's a spring here that is pushing all the mechanism up. So we lift that, and this is what is it goes into the rod that goes to the transmission or to the transaxle, and there's this plate as well. So we're going to replace all this. So now you end up with just two holes for the bolts, opening for where everything slides into the rod that goes to the transaxle. And we're going to show you how everything slides into this guy here. So we have taken everything else off, the spring, the bottom plate, and everything, so we can show you how this mechanism with a rod and the bearing on the back goes into the shifter once everything's in there, or you want to put it back in. So what it does, the rod goes towards the front, and you slide it right like that, as you can see. So the rod towards the front, and you slide it in and push it in, and it falls in. But with the spring, it's going to be a little trickier. You got to make sure that when you got the spring, this lines up and it goes bottoms out when you're putting it in. But before we start putting in the new shifter, we got to put grease in here because there's a lot of movement and it can create friction. So we'll add grease, and then we'll start sliding the shifter just like this with everything on it, so we can start securing it to the frame. So this is the grease that we're using. So we're gonna clean up that area from the old grease, so in case there's any sand or anything in there, we don't contaminate the new grease coming into that. Now that we did as much cleaning as we could, we add the grease. So when you get the shifter, it's probably gonna be like this. The plate and the spring are gonna be between this plate, and it's gonna be the boot and then the shifter knob. So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to undo the shifter knob, take it off, slide the boot out, slide the spring and the plate off of it. They put it together so they don't get lost. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna leave this plate into the shifter like this, and then you're gonna slide the boot in, put the shifter knob on back in, and this spring and this plate are the ones that are gonna go underneath here and into the frame as well. So now we take these two out to start putting everything together. So now what we do is we put this plate right in there like this. Then we put the spring here. We put grease into this and we slide it with the rod pointing forward into it so we can start setting everything in there and bolting it down. So you'll see the cover like this, but in reality, the spring is not even touching the cover, it's into the shifter, the little cup that is welded into it. So that's how it is. The bottom piece is gonna be resting on the plate like this, as you can see. So that cover, all it does, it comes down and it pushes the cup against the frame. So it pushes the spring compressed and then is bolted down into the frame. So there's always tension and there's no spring touch. The spring is not even touching this cover. It's just like this. So as you can see, the shifter comes through the plate and the tension is being built between the shifter and this plate. This is just to keep everything down and attached to the frame. So we're gonna be putting grease here too because there's movement in there as well. So you don't want to have friction. Then this is covered by the boot. The rubber boot will come down here. So that's where the boot comes in play. But for now, we put this plate and then we start guiding all this down with the rod forward. And then we bring this down. And once it's everything lined up, we make sure that this slides into the groove of the shifter rod. And then we can start putting the bolts in. And the last thing we will do is put the boot in to cover this area. Now that everything's greased up, we start putting everything together. So one thing we're gonna be doing is we're gonna clean all these threads out and then we're gonna be adding some blue or medium strength Loctite because with that vibration, these bolts can start loosening themselves and then you don't want the shifter to come off in the less expected area. Now that we clean the threads on these bolts, we're gonna put some blue Loctite, medium strength. So first thing we do, we put the plate in just like this. And then this long groove, it goes into the right side or the passenger side. The short one goes to the driver's side. And then we can get the spring to sit right in around that. And then the shifter knob has to have the rod pointing forward and the bearing back. So we slide it in, we make sure it falls in, and then we can bring this plate down and then bolting it down to the chassis. So now that it fell in, what we do is we put the plate in and we put the two bolts and tighten them down. Once you tighten those bolts by hand, before you completely tighten it down, make sure that this slides down. So that means that everything's on place. So it's sliding into the groove. And then we can tighten those two bolts. So now that we have tightened everything in, there's a grease point, and then we make the shifting, reverse, everything goes in. So now we put the boot into it and that'll be the last. So now as you can see, that point is the grease up point. So now this boot goes over it, so it covers that dust and stuff that will get in there and contaminate the grease. Well, folks, hopefully this video about replacing the shifter on our Volkswagen or Karmann Ghia, it was useful and helpful. And that way you need to replace because it broke off or you just want to change the look of it, it's going to help you how to do this. Just take your time and do everything slowly so that way you don't hustle anything and break or damage any of the new components. These components, like we said, we bought it on B Parts in National City, so they're very helpful. So hopefully this was very helpful for yourself. For our friends who are watching the video, haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. If you like a video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here in el canal, El Chano Jose.